Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for December 28th through January 1st, 2021. How are you doing? Happy New Year. Here we are. I think most people happy to see the end of 2020 and looking into 2021. And let's talk about this shift because January is going to be this overlap of energies. In February, on the new moon in February, is after the Chinese New Year happens the day after the new moon in Aquarius. And so that happens this year on February 12th is Chinese New Year, and we'll be moving into the year of the ox and more about that. But this is the energy that we want to keep in mind of what's really happening here as we go through this very strange time that we can all sense is something's just not quite right. Time isn't as it was. Reality isn't as it was. And yet, here we go. We have the same kind of just status quo Groundhog Day thing playing out. This is a very interesting energy. I don't have any answers, but there's definitely this timeline war and the forces that are holding humanity from evolution throughout time. See, this is a really interesting energy that's coming up right now is that 2020 vision, it's taking us to the end of the year, but every day more and more people are waking up to the truth of how humanity has been controlled, and especially how what we are being controlled right now with draconian measures that don't match science, that are absolutely infringing on our individual rights and will continue to infringe on our rights to exist, to survive on this planet if we don't stand up. And that's the energy of the ox. The ox is like, oh, no, you don't. We've had enough, right? And so it's an interesting energy as we go from 2020 of like coming into an awakening. A lot of this year has been about revealing the truth, this great awakening, but we're not really seeing the effects yet of the great awakening. We cannot get to the future without a massive disclosure of truth and some disruption in the way we live our life. It's been easier to just pretend that the control energies do not exist and that that's happening over there. These dark things are happening over there. I'm over here. And what 2020 has done has brought us all into the same pot. And now we're like, how do we get out of this? And that means that massive, profound changes are happening. Now, everybody's been saying this and nothing happens, right? Every day, the same thing. And this is this very strange time that we're in right now, anticipating something. And yet not knowing what that means, not knowing the timeline. But I have to say, it's getting more and more clear that the timeline we're on is going backwards. I mean, it's almost like if you study time and the mechanisms of time, there's an energy that happens forward and backward from the time. So time exists in, duality and time are kind of synonymous. Manifested world and time. And it appears that the forces that have wanted to hold back our spiritual evolution, they're doing that by keeping us in the past. And this is a big thing with this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that we continue to feel. They're still less than 1 degree apart until the second. So we are in it. We are just in the middle of it. And when you're in the middle of things, you cannot tell what's going on. But Saturn rules time and Jupiter rules the future and expansion. And so these planets coming together rule the shift of ages, rule time, rule generations. And it's like we can see the patterns that have played out, repeating again and again through history. And it's like, are we going to learn? Are we going to grow? Are we going to keep repeating the same stuff? And it all goes down to the current astrology, the message in the stars right now. So we're coming into this full moon in Cancer. 8 degrees, 53 minutes. Very interesting location because 8 is about transformation, 9 is about completion. And we're looking at the last couple of years of astrology, really, with when we had the North Node in Cancer, and did we get the message of what we're doing here? So for this last week we've been feeling but really intense in the last few days, the Sun and Mercury together in square to Chiron. The Sun and Mercury in Capricorn in square to Chiron, who has just turned direct, now moving from 4 degrees to 5 degrees, has moved 1 degree. Chiron is our deepest wounds. And these are also generational wounds. These are stories that have happened to us. And Chiron in Aries is about where we have given up our freedom, our life force, our power, our reality, our truth, in order to survive, to stay alive. Aries is life and death. It's survival. And so the wounds are about where you haven't been able to be who you are, which is Aries also rules the I am, the life force that is the true energy. That's the life force, and our access to life force and our God-given right as just existing as a human. This is the key to everything right now. And with that Mars retrograde in Aries, this whole year has been about this. It's like, you guys, you have the power and you've given it away again and again and again. Now, with the energy of the ox coming in and 2021, this is different. It's like there's a huge energy of personal power and standing up for what's right and good and true and taking back our world. Now, Chiron in Aries speaks to this deep wounds of where you haven't been able to be who you are, where you've had to be something different than who you are, where you've had to fit in order to stay alive. And this is exactly, fits the story of the supernova soul in general. It's like, okay, here I am. And if I'm going to shine my light, if I'm going to be in my truth, if I'm going to, that's going to call out the corruption, that's going to bring healing to the darkness, and the forces of control and power don't want this. We get caught up in thinking that the forces and control and power are our current political system, but it's like, no, this has gone on for thousands of years, since Atlantean time. These forces have been on the planet wanting to hold back our spiritual evolution. And I guess they're playing their role, right? All happens in the oneness. And that's where we have to go, like, our opportunity right now in this current shift of energy is going from being victimized by the system to being empowered to be empowered, to recognize our own power, recognize that the wealth of this world, we've been controlled through money and through our basic human needs and through trauma and tragedy. And now we're like, wait a minute, the power, the only power is life force. It's what moves and fuels all. And there's enough people on the planet right now that are holding back their power, learning to contain their power. The next step is bringing our power together and organizing that power. With we, the people, have the power. That's just a fact. And when we're all separated from each other and socially distanced, we can't communicate, we can't organize, we can't support each other in taking back their power. It's a very elaborate, well thought out, hundreds of year old plan to make sure that humanity never makes it over this threshold. And the astrology of 2020, it's like, has all been about a spiritual awakening and new spiritual energies coming to the planet, activation into who we really are in our next evolutionary stage. And so that's why the control energies have had to go full throttle to stop this process, to try to, right? But then we're in this weird 4D place where everything is mirrored. you know? And if everything's mirrored, and as we're coming into this strange portal of whether we're splitting timelines, joining timelines, crisscrossing, who knows what's happening, but there's this energy of like everything that's happening is all going into the one. It's all folding into the one. And so everything that's happening is happening for you, supporting you. And even though it feels like it's not. Now, that's an interesting energy with Chiron, because when Chiron affects your chart, like a transit, and your chart, Chiron in the sky goes through your chart in certain areas and affects your planets in your birth chart, it has an energy of like, get over it. Like, stop playing the victim, stand up. And especially in Aries, stand up, take your power back, dust yourself off, and this is exactly the energy of this full moon. So leading up to this full moon for the last few days, we've had this intense square of the Sun and Mercury in square to Chiron. The Sun and Mercury will be opposite of the moon. Of course, the sun and the moon opposite is what makes a full moon, but Mercury will be right there as well in square to Chiron. So this is a cardinal T-square for this full moon, and all eyes are on Cancer. And Cancer is about having what we need to survive, feeling loved and held and cared for. The one thing that's been missing from this reality, the one way that they were able to pull off all of this was to separate us from life itself. Go back to the Atlantean catastrophe, it was about separating us from our mother, from feeling safe and held and loved and connected. And then a very deliberate genocide of the original cultures that held this connection and the shamans of those cultures, and a very deliberate attack on all that has, all of our options to go back to the Great Mother, to feel like and this is the huge core issue for supernova souls, feeling like you don't belong here. Somebody dropped you off and forgot about you, abandoned. This is all the deep core issues of the Cancer energy. But this full moon in Cancer is a culmination of the last couple of years of us trying to get this message. And it's interesting that it comes right on the edge of this new earth, this birthing of new earth. And it's like we've got to come back into a feeling of being held and cared for and loved. And it's not easy because everything seems to be working against the light, right? But then it's like when it gets so intense and so dualistic and so in the portal, that 4D energy, the mirror, it's like, oh, it's all actually working towards the same thing. Everything that's working against you is working for you. We have no more choices. The only way out is within, into that darkest corner and into the light. And it feels in the collective, the leading up to the events of this season and the conjunction and this hope. And then it's like, oh my gosh, here we are. And it's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. We have people just completely complying with the system, not even realizing for a minute, not seeing that their fundamental rights are being taken away right under their nose. And if this China timeline continued, we're looking at, forced control mechanisms, technological control, and you will submit to this if you want to ever have any freedoms, if you want to ever actually survive, if you want to have money, if you want to have a bank account, if you want to get a loan, if you want to travel. This is a social credit score system that's already in play in China, And so it's like, are we going down this road? Because if we're going down this road, there's a whole bunch of light workers and very advanced beings on the planet right now that are not going to have it. Like, we're out of here. No, sorry. We've already gone through the darkest dark and we're not going to play anymore. And so we have to understand, though, that that's exactly where we're at. We're in that hero's journey place. I know it's dragged out for a long time, but it's like it's darkest just before the dawn. It's when it appears that all hope is lost. And we're just going to step back and allow our God-given freedoms and rights to be taken right under our nose and not do anything about it. And that's not actually what's happening. And the astrology doesn't support this paradigm either. We're in this, still in the very, like I said, when you're in it, you can't see what's happening. But this movement of Jupiter and Saturn over into Aquarius is hearkening the freedom of this new age. It's saying we're going to see through the lies, we're going to stand up in our power, and we're going to take back our right to exist as autonomous beings on this planet with our air to breathe, our beautiful, abundant food that is not manipulated. This is where we're at. We're just right there at that turning point. So I'm feeling supernova souls being really affected by collective energy, by the confusion, by the mistrust, because even though people who are totally buying in to the program that the media wants us to just be in fear, put your mask on, and go to sleep, and but the astrology doesn't support this continuing. Aquarius is about freedom. It's about taking care of each other. It's about claiming our individual rights. And it's about communication and the voice being heard again. So, but the uncomfortable denial and schism that's happening psychologically in the collective consciousness right now is really affecting the sensitive soul. So I just wanted to bring that up because it feels more intense than it has been, like more difficult to disconnect from the collective energies. And so if you're feeling really overwhelmed with energies, that's what's going on. And it's kind of a reminder of like, oh yeah, no, this is, I'm sensing what they're sensing, which they don't know yet. And again, it comes back to this parasitic. I was talking about the parasitic reality and how we live in a parasitic world. This is the whole deal. The lower matrix, the whole control mechanism is fed by our power. They don't have a source of power of their own. We have all the wealth. And so the lower matrix has survived to this point because it's feeding on our power, right? And we said yes on some level. And this is exactly what this Cancer Capricorn moon, Cancer Capricorn axis, this full moon is all about. The emotional energy of Cancer with the moon there and the full moon in a culmination is like where you haven't, and square to Chiron, opposite Mercury and the Sun in Capricorn. Mercury and the Sun in Capricorn is bringing home into our everyday reality, our personal planets, what 2020 has been about. We've had this huge drama play out in Capricorn. But now that the Sun and Mercury are in Capricorn, it's like, what does this mean for you? And in square to Chiron, opposite this, this full moon, is Cardinal T-square. The Chiron wounds are now about authority. And we all have given our power away in order to stay alive, especially light worker souls. You came and you got persecuted, you got targeted, and you said, okay, well, now you've created karma on the earth, and now you have to come back and deal with these lower, just these reptilians, and try to get your karma figured out and get yourself out of this mess and complete yourself. And then this feeling of responsibility to humanity. So this is a big part of maybe this collective energy right now, that somehow you as a more advanced soul should be responsible for this pain that people are feeling and will be feeling, and so we've gotten caught in this trap. And right now it's our way out. 2021 is our way out of the delusions of the control, because this Cancer full moon in square to Chiron is saying, this is like, we've had to give up our power, our autonomy, our God-given rights, just to have what we need to survive. And this is the ultimate agenda that's trying to happen right now, is total control, right? And they're showing it to us. They have to show it to us. You must do this, which has no basis in fact or science or reality, but we told you you need to do this, and you must do this in order to buy food. We're in charge now of your food supply. We've been poisoning it all this time so that you have lower vitality, so that you forget that you have any power. So you're just beaten down, with electromagnetic weapons being used against us, right? So there's but at the same time, it's all about getting the people to see what's happening. This is 2020. It's about playing out the drama that's been played out underneath the surface for thousands of years. And people just had to go along with it, right? And now it's right in our face. And it's very clear who's going along with it and who still has a brain of their own. With cognitive thinking that can put facts and link together logical thinking, right? But the message is that, even though it seems all is lost, there's more people on the planet right now than ever before that are fully awake in their consciousness, that are living this I am presence. And I know it feels like you go to sleep and you wake up and you claw your way back into God. And it's not easy, but we're doing it and it's happening, and there's no way around this. Things cannot stay this way and humanity survive on the earth. It cannot. We got to have full disclosure of truth, and we got to stand up for our rights and take back our power. And there's way, way more of us. And there's way, way more awake people to the truth, to spirituality, to enlightenment, to God, to I am presence and logical thinking than ever before, even though we're being shown total sheep, And so we're coming to head in this full moon with everywhere throughout our lifetimes that we have had to give away our God-given rights, our power, our life force, our freedom to live, to teach, to heal in order to survive. And there's just a deep, uncomfortable, sick feeling coming up, where it's like, I'm not going to do it anymore. And this is huge because this is the place we had to get to for these changes to occur. And, the Aries energy and Mars and Aries. So the other thing that's happening is that Mars has been in its third and final square with Pluto through this retrograde that we've been feeling all the way back to like June. It started this energy. June, July, it moved into Aries. And so this last whole part of this year is all about this Mars retrograde. So we got Chiron and Aries there bringing these issues and wounds to the surface. But Mars, our personal planet, being activated in a retrograde, being like, wait a minute. Where's the warrior self? Where's the power? Where's the presence? And so this third and final square with Pluto is the breaking point. And we feel that through the end of the year. And it's so interesting to me that Mars moves out of its retrograde shadow. So it went into retrograde. It went to 28 degrees Aries and then turned retrograde. It comes to 29 degrees on the 1st of January. So the 1st of January, this new year, is a massive shift. Mars is out of retrograde shadow. It still is going to come into square. Its third and final square with Jupiter and Saturn in January. So there is a completion. That's where like January is this weird overlapping multiple timeline options, and so, but that square is going to be happening in Mars and Taurus. Mars moves into Taurus on the 6th, right? So very powerful day, Epiphany. Mars moves into Taurus and it's like done its thing in Aries. It's like, all right, you guys, here's your empowerment. Here's your warrior empowerment. What are you going to do with it now? And this is this place we're at where there's just too many people awake. And there's too many people back connected to the I am, no matter what kind of technological control they want to throw at us. And that dam has got to break, you know? And it's got to happen here in the next few weeks, months at the most. So it's a crazy, strange time. And know that if you are feeling challenged in your ability to keep the faith, that is actually evidence that you're doing it because you're kind of being attacked, right? It's like those on the edge of holding the vibration, and leading the way, you're going to feel it the most until the shift happens where the collective is woken up by events. And so what you're doing, so if you've been feeling beaten down in this last couple of days, in this week, it's since the solstice, it's because you're doing it. You are a force to be contended with. You are holding the line of the new paradigm. And it's amazing what you're doing. And again, massive gratitude coming in, messages from the forces that are our higher selves and wanting to support this evolution. There's no other way forward besides truth, empowerment, enlightenment. We're just at the end of the road. And when you feel you're at the end of the road, there's a feeling like, see, this is this T-square energy for this full moon. It's like, you can't go anymore that way. Can't go that way anymore. And this is where we're at. So just know that and it's because of this devolving energy of keeping us in the past. This is how they've controlled us, right? It's like the technology and understanding of time used to keep us trapped in time. So know that you're in a Groundhog Day energy right now. And of course, now the other thing that's happening, so we got this intense T-square for this full moon, bringing up everywhere you haven't felt nurtured, everywhere you've had to give away your power and your life force in order to have not even nurtured, but just a little bit of crumbs, to survive. And so that's this powerful energy. Now, when we have a T-square, and that means we've got Cancer, the Cancer full moon, we've got the Sun and Mercury in Capricorn, we got Chiron in Aries, then it leaves like a vacuum in the sign of Libra, the early degrees of Libra. And so this is speaking to the way out of the trap is through relationship, connection, everything they don't want us to do right now. It's like, oh, that is really, really important. We've got to come back together and forge our way back together and in our soul groups. And allow ourselves to receive these relationship connections. That's how we get out of this trap. And it's interesting because people feel more alone right now than they've ever felt. And you've been alone. You've been exiled. This is part of the program. Isolation is a key part of the protocol of torture. And you've gone through this in past lives, And maybe that's partly what's going on. It's like coming up, this Chiron and Aries being so activated. It's like all these wounds of where you've been. If you ever stood up for your truth, then you were cast out. If you want to be a part of the group, you're going to go along with our program, And it's like you came to Earth from the very first moment you ever thought and took on this mission. You came here to go against the grain. You're totally different. You came here to challenge the status quo. You came here to stand up to the darkness. And that's the gloriousness of this time, is it feels very dark right now, but actually this is thousands of years of rebellion underground now coming to the surface, now expressed. And the power and the weapon of consciousness, it's not going away. You can't smush that. It's gone too far. We've already crossed the threshold. And now we are stuck in this old paradigm loop of time. So just know that you're on the cutting edge. You're being asked to be true to who you are in a way that you haven't been able to before for many lifetimes. And it's an excruciatingly painful place because it's bringing up everywhere that you've been rejected from the earth because of your light and because of your truth. And that's this Chiron in Aries. Now, the other thing that's going on is that Venus, the ruler of Libra, right, kind of bringing up that vacuum of energy of like our relationships are key. And two people come together, two or more, and hold this vibration. This is part of the deal with the isolation. It's just so hard to, you all day long, you're spending your whole focus to try to keep above, the garbage goo, and so Venus is coming up with to the south node and square with Neptune. And so that happens on the 30th, 31st, right at the end of the year. And we're going to be feeling that through the second. So this is a really interesting energy because Venus is like what we love, what we want, what makes us feel good. And the south node. So this is where the excruciating pain is coming up for the light worker soul right now, for the supernova soul. It's like having to be like, I've just given away my power one too many times. And the south node is like this feeling of failure on your mission here, and so Venus is our deep, like just emotional self. And so we often feel it in our emotions, the Venus transits. And so with Venus on the south node, it's just like, this culmination of everything that's kept us in the trap of this lower matrix. And we know we have this whole other, we have so much to us, like we've had so many experiences, and this is one little blip in time in our this earth lifetime and this earth evolution. And yet all of that is blocked off from us right now in our psyche and our consciousness. But that's been part of this timeline war. It's like the magic of life and spirit and light seeping back in to our reality through the cracks because the matrix is breaking down. But we're dealing with all of this grief of where we haven't been able to stand up for our truth, where we haven't been able to survive on the planet and have family, have community, and be who we really are. And to the point where we've completely lost connection with who we really are. But now it's like a comet slamming back into your reality, and you have zero tolerance, So this is what's happening. It's a good thing, but it's scary because it's like, I can't keep my mouth shut anymore, like, and this, but no, you're not alone. There are people standing up in their truth all over in their different ways. And there's more of us than ever on the planet. They want you to think you're all alone, but it's a complete and total lie, So the south node is bringing up such intense energy, then square to Neptune in Pisces. Neptune in Pisces is about dreaming. It's about visioning, fantasy. It's about delusions, right? So the delusion that we really need to get over for supernova souls is that you didn't fail in your mission. And if that's what's keeping you from standing up in your power and you're taking back your right to exist in your life force, that's, it's going to keep us in the delusion. But also the square to Neptune is a very powerful energy of being able to dream a new dream, of using the imagination is so important. When you read a story, especially like what's been coming up right now with these historical energies replaying, and it's like say you were reading a history story or fiction, and you're like, the story and the imagination. That imagination energy is what sets you free from the story to see the greater truth, so we don't have to keep going through these loops. So the power of imagination right now is so intense and powerful. And so everybody maybe has to use that in their own way, but it's like we're being overwhelmed with the dark hold of the lower matrix goo, and lied to and lied to and lied to, and mechanically kept from our life force and our health on multiple levels, right? But we have our way out. And the way out, like we said, the key is to dream this new dream, to use the imagination, the story, to write a new story. And this is the weird thing we're in right now, because it's like everybody who, works in this kind of predictive, which I try to stay away as much as possible of, like, future and prediction and timeline, but everybody who's working in this field right now of trying to give insight is like, kind of the message is like, I don't know, can't see beyond the corner. There's nothing there. And almost it's like that nothing there energy is keeping us going back to the old, because it's all we know, that, like, abusive relationship with the lower matrix, right? And so imagination is how we get out of this trap, right? And so this is a beautiful opportunity to dream a new dream. Now, this is the theme, in a way, of the full moon in Cancer. The energy is like coming home, and it's like resolving. What this astrology is really saying, to me, when I put it all together, it's like it's time for the supernova soul to resolve all that is keeping you in the old timelines, because that's exactly what's keeping you from feeling cared for and loved in this world. And you are here to establish, it's a lot to ask of you, really, right? Like, here you have been completely rejected, mistreated, exiled, traumatized for who you are and your light, and disconnected from having what you need to survive and community. And now you're being asked to create the new, to be present energetically, to go from being the most rejected and disconnected from the earth to merging with the new mother, the new earth, and establishing that energy. And that's a major shift. So no wonder all this dark garbage is coming up right now. This deep and profound cleansing for the lightworker soul of an absolute turnaround. That's one thing about this astrology. It is a turnaround, and maybe a good time for a turnaround is at the end of the calendar year, or the end of the Chinese year. And here we are, right? So we've got the end of the calendar, our Gregorian calendar year, and then the Chinese New Year. And our world could look extremely different after this period. It's almost like this is the knitting together of these timelines, or the separating out, or both. But those things that have been controlling us, time, reality, these old patterns, trauma, fear, those are dismantling. And it's interesting, because this is the empowerment I'm seeing, as much as there's this dark, dark night energy of, like, nothing's ever going to change. And if I have to wake up and do this again, what is the point, But it's like, we have to entertain that a massive boomerang turnaround, because this is the energy. The energy on multiple levels is a massive boomerang. And we're in the point right now where the boomerang is turning. Right? So we can't tell if the boomerang is going to continue to go that way or come back. And that's actually, but it can't go that way. We know we're not going that way. We've come too far. And the gig is up. And this is maybe part of the energy, is reevaluating on a deep soul level because so many supernova souls feel so trapped here right now in this lower reality. And that's this victim energy that's coming up with this Chiron energy, and this opportunity to be like, what if it's all working for you to get out of this trap, to bring you back to God, to that last little block of the blinders that you've been holding on to. And God is revealed in your life, right? Like, you didn't come here to save humanity. You didn't come here to martyr and sacrifice yourself, although that was a role you played for a while. You came here for you. It's about you coming back to God. and living and breathing that in this 3D messed up, totally upside down, backwards world. And maybe that's exactly what you needed to get back to God. And there's an energy of like, oh, yeah, no. And I don't need to be a part of this for 1 minute longer from when I find my freedom, right? And this is the new dream we need to dream, that we're here on our terms, that we're not victims and trapped and prisoned, even though we have been, it's about, oh no, I came here to find freedom, to be fully, to lose my freedom, right? See, this is why it's been so intense for you, this whole thing, because you already were an involved soul. You've already gone through spiritual initiation. You already knew who you were. You already went back to God. And then you came all the way back down here and fell from grace, supposedly, and fell from the truth of who you are. And you, in order to survive, you cut yourself off from that truth to the point that now you have nothing. As this matrix falls away, the deep, dark feelings that the supernova soul is going through is an ego death. That everything for lifetimes that you've played out and you thought you were is nothing. And it's like empty, blackness, right? And it's like, oh, no. It's actually that you're everything. You're everything. You just played along and you bought into it. Everything that they told you, you weren't. And you just had to play the game. And now it's like, okay, well, I played the game for physical survival, and now I'm remembering who I really am and my spiritual power and how much bigger I am than this story, and I don't need to play your game to survive. I have everything I need right here in my light body. And we know our earth and our new earth has everything we need beyond. And this abundance, this is this Taurus energy. It's powerful because Mercury's moving into Taurus. And this is another thing too. It's like we're so Mars, excuse me. I keep doing that. Mars is moving into Taurus, and this is about this taking back the breadbasket of the abundance that's here on this earth that's been stolen from us, again, through technology. And Mars and Taurus is also putting a fire under our self-worth energies, right? So it's a perfect energy to lead us up into the into Chinese New Year, the year of the ox, and this strength of almost, I'm seeing that like a picture of the Sphinx, of the ancient wisdom that was programmed into the stone structures of the spiritual strength of humanity in its evolution, and kind of being like, yeah, if you want to get your timeline, get your agenda, you're going to have to go through us first. And we're awake now. And millions of us awake now, it means there's a problem for you because we're not playing. We're not having it, and we're not going to succumb to the fear. This is a fearless moment for humanity. I mean, and the empowerment that we're going to see, it's like, yes, it's the darkest dark. Yes, it's the hope is lost. Yes, it's this just some of the darkest feelings in the collective energies that I've ever felt. And I know supernova souls, we were doing a really good job of disconnecting from the collective, but as this timeline convergent thing is happening, it's more and more difficult not to feel the collective. And this is exactly why we have to evolve, because we cannot have, and as a sensitive soul, and you're doing your spiritual work, right? And you're clearing, you're paying attention, you're trying to awaken. And all it's doing is making life harder for you, because you can't not feel what's happening, and you can't not feel the pain of the people around you, and you can't not feel their uncertainty and their delusional, it's like, this is an interesting thing, because as a sensitive soul, a lot of times emotionally empathic, right? This is what happens as we evolve. As humans evolve, you get more and more sensitive, more and more empathic. So there you go. This has been a huge problem for you, but actually you're the solution. But this time is really hard because you've been doing everything to get more clear, to get more awakened, to open yourself up to your spiritual light and energy. But it's backfiring right now because you can't handle being here, being so sensitive. You cannot be, it feels like, how can I wake up and live another day in this garbage, you know? But like I said, the astrology does not support the backwards timeline regression, trapped in the past energy anymore. We're having a merging of I don't know exactly what happens. And it's like one thing that came through the Edgar Casey readings was like that because in manifested duality and consciousness, physical form is held into place through duality, through positive, negative polarity, that there's a whole nother solar system, where there's two Earth solar systems, right? Two different timelines in this duality. And it's at the point where we can't continue with the unresolved garbage of the lower timeline. So we've had to merge. And I don't know. Again, it's like the more you try to understand what's happening right now, the less it makes sense. Again, the message like, okay, let's just try to dream a new dream right now and come back, use your, so the other thing that came through that your Casey readings is that despite the power of the planets and the influence that the energies have, the most powerful force in the human condition is the will force. It can overcome all, right? And that was my problem for years and years. I've studied astrology, but didn't want to move into a professional place with it because I felt like people are pigeonholed. They're like, oh, I have moon in Scorpio. This is just who I am. And it's like, no, this is a tool. These are messages. This is helping us understand the story so we can get out of the story, right? And this is where humanity says, all right, yeah, there's these patterns and the dark forces have used them to play out the trauma again and again. And it's like, there's a new game in town. And we're not playing. And the power and the emotion and the joy and that's going to come from these revelations. At first, it's going to be hard and difficult, right? To face these truths. But there is a massive celebration on our way. And when that happens, that's when we blow the ceiling off of this place. I can't stay. Like, that's why they've kept us all separated from each other in this year of massive spiritual activation. Because collective energy of joy in person next to each other destroys the lower matrix, and we were getting to a point where the joy energies were getting to a point where, and especially the astrology of 2020 poses a great threat to the control energies. And so they had to just clamp down. And yet that clamping down is exactly what's caused enough people to wake up to get out of the trap. So just know that change is coming. It's going to be dramatic. Life's going to look different. It all has to do with truth. If we don't get truth, we don't get to go forward. We're not going to stay here and play out that timeline, that lower timeline. So just sit tight, be present, hold your power, climb your way back to God every day and be there and be with New Earth and the Great Mother. And that's exactly the energy of this full moon. I hope you can join me for the activation. It's really about that living and breathing and establishing, and it's like, this is the most difficult thing that may be asked of you, to go from feeling rejected, unloved, uncared for in this reality to completely held and cared for and loved as you as you answer the call to establish these new earth energies. That's who you are. So when we're feeling impatient and frustrated with the darkness of the world, maybe we can go back to that point in this astrology, this Cardinal T-square and Venus in square to the node. We have a mutable T-square, Cardinal T-square, and Venus on the south node, and it's like turning point. So the radical shift and change in the world as it pertains to you, supernova soul, is exactly this Mars moving into Taurus, this Mars square Saturn and Jupiter in Taurus. Mars and Taurus square Saturn and Jupiter. And it's about coming back into our abundance and our self-worth. And that's the radical change that the world is waiting for. So we'll work with this. But the theme that came forward for this full moon was like coming home. It's like, yeah, now we do it. Now we've been waiting and waiting, and now we do it. Now we come home. Now we establish this. Now we own the new paradigm. We own the 5D. We own New Earth, Gaia, our new mother, and she envelops us and walks with us. And that's a far cry from the crumbs, the rejection, the disconnection, the fall from grace that's gone on since Atlantean time. So remember that too. Like, this isn't just a change like, 2020 to 2021. It's not just a change from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age, This is like humanity being set free. We are a part of a galactic family, right? And we've been in quarantine. And our world is like, we just can't move forward without radical, powerful disclosures of truth. And your job is to allow yourself and be present with this new earth energy and allow yourself to receive that. And that's exactly the energy of this Mars moving over into Taurus. Now, Mars is going to be in Taurus until early March. So that gives us another kind of timeline energy. It's almost like we're in the very strange, darkest dark before the shift. And then we've got January, February, we're going to be in increments, so that there's the most harmonized option of this transition. And, but there's no way around it. It's the ox in the room. And we got to face it. We got to be it. We got to be in our strength, be in our power of who we really are as spiritual beings, and be like, we're not, the thing about this is like the people who are all across the spectrum, there's people willing to stand up, some who are veterans, who are willing to fight and risk their life, and these supernova souls that are willing to completely allow their whole life and who they thought they were to dissolve so they can come into their spiritual power. But it comes to this Chiron and Aries thing of like, and the Capricorn, it's like, you have controlled us all this time because of a fear of survival and a fear of death. And now we know we're way more. We just know this. And if we're going to be here, we're going to live here. We're going to actually live. And that means we got to kick you off the planet, but there's just no way around it. It's already written. It's already happening. So just take heart and know that like the Groundhog Day feeling is temporary, and it's giving you that opportunity to every single day make your way back to your truth and your spirit and your permission to exist in your full glory. And imagine that. Imagine these millions, billions of people coming into their full glory. And that's the only option. So just know that we're on that train and dream a new dream. I hope to see you at the live activation. Will be 7 p.m. on Tuesday. The full moon is Tuesday, the 29th. And that will be happening. The activation will be just before that, an hour and a half before the actual full moon at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I hope you'll consider joining. And if you can't be there live, you can catch the replay and still be in the energy. But let's go ahead and establish this new world. Let's dream this new dream. Let's write this new story together. And I cannot wait to experience this new world and who you are in this new story together. So I look forward to seeing you there or on the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.